Welcome to the Premier Betting Show. I am your host, Tycoon, and I guess it would be your left is the talent, Fox. How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I am tremendous. We got another week of talking Premier League. We've got the debut weekend of the 2023 season. I'm ready for some matches. You're ready for some matches. Your club's making big moves, catching up to my club. And
Absolutely. Big moves today.
Before we jump into matchups, though, also should mention a carryover piece of news that we were discussing last week, and that is Harry Kane's potential transfer to Bayern Munich.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
Well, apparently it was on, and then the talks kind of fell apart, and it was like, hey, you got one last shot, and that's it. And I mean, honestly, that kind of came and went, and then boom, wake up this morning, and Tottenham has accepted the terms, and then Harry Kane got cold feet, and like you said, when I talked to you, like right before the show, telling you he actually signed, you still thought he was.
Last I saw this afternoon was that he was, like you said, having cold feet. And then I heard on the radio as I'm driving around that he had decided to stay at Tottenham. So it sounds like some reporters may have been jumping to conclusions with just the reporting of doubt. And then, all of a sudden you're texting me telling me, it went through. I'm like, whoa, that was not what I expected to lead off tonight's show with. That's for sure.
No, and honestly, I'm shocked. I totally expected him to stay at this point, with it just being literally days away. And I know he said the whole time, as long as the deal is made before the season starts, that he would honor him saying, I'll go. So it's kind of like, it's surprising, but it's not at the same time. But with just it coming down to the wire,
the 11th
definitely makes
hour
things interesting.
Well, with that, let's also mention, one bet that was hanging on that piece of news was leading goal scorer. We were considering Kane, should he have stayed at Tottenham. Now, what is the pivot now that Kane is no longer part of the squad?
Oh, it's Son. And I almost think it's a slam dunk. I know he kind of had a rough season last year, but I think now that he's pretty much the guy that they're going to rely on, it's just too easy to not pick him. And I don't know if it's even updated yet.
So maybe there's still time to get a good number, especially some of our American sports books are slow to react.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think he was super high up on the list either. I think he was
probably not.
Kane was the obvious choice, but I think he was right behind Kane, like plus 170 maybe. But since I actually haven't seen anything officially come through, and they've pulled Tottenham from the list. So if you got in before, if you got in before, and it's just like even the Burnley bets and Man City bets, since they play tomorrow. If you listen to this early enough, those can still be in play. But I mean, with time running out, I'd almost stay away from those ones and just focus on the actual weekend past tomorrow. But if you can, and they lock tomorrow. Okay. So I think it says they're up until 3 p.m. Pacific time. So you've got at least tomorrow to see if they update the top team goal scorers for Son.
Right. And when we say tomorrow, by the time you're watching this, it'll be today. So Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific time. Let's just make sure that's clear. Now, but speaking of the actual weekend, we'll dive into the first matchup here. First, it is the 2023-2024 EPL champions Arsenal that will be matching up against Nottingham Forest. So let's hear your thoughts on this. Well, obviously, match of the week.
Yeah. I mean, Arsenal obviously huge favorites. Which, if you go back to last season, they played 3 times. They lost 2, won 1, and of course the one they win 5-0, but or 5-0, excuse me. And the ones they lose, it was only 1-0 for each. But I mean, huge loss in the FA Cup, and I think the other was towards the end of the season when they actually needed a win.
Yes,
and they let that one slip. I mean, Arsenal's a better looking team, I believe, than they were last year. I think they have something to prove this season, especially with letting it slip out of their hands last season. So, I mean, obviously, I don't like them at 500, but they're definitely a team that we'll touch on later as a parlay pick, though. But I'm intrigued by the both teams to not score here. I don't know if I'd go with it being a huge blowout again.
and I should apologize to everybody. I have a typo in there, so I'm going to go ahead and fix that. That's not minus 1225 for both teams not to score. It is strictly just minus 125. Sorry, y'all.
Yeah, and even with the under 3.5, I really like that one. And I think the 125 isn't terrible, but I'd still take that there. If I had to take one bet from this, it'd probably be the under 3.5. I think it is a three goal game, but I don't see it going much higher than that.
No, I don't either. I probably wouldn't play anything here, but if I were to, it would be that under.
Right.
All right, so we'll move to a squad that one of our friends, Greg Sander, enjoys: Bournemouth versus West Ham. And now this is a much more even matchup. We don't have to worry about a heavy favorite ruining the fun when trying to make a bet. But maybe it's so close that it kind of ruins the fun a little bit. Unless you have a thought?
Generally, when it's this close, you're looking at 175 for Bournemouth and 160 for West Ham. And I do like West Ham a little more here. And they did take both matches last season. It is at Bournemouth, so that kind of makes me a little nervous. I don't really like anything from this game. If I had to pick something, I honestly would probably lean the draw at plus 240 here, because the both to score, yes, is just way too high.
Right.
I do think both score, but I think you're looking at like a 1-1 draw. So, I mean, there's not much here worth your money.
All right. So, with not much there to really consider, we'll move on to another lopsided matchup in Brighton versus Luton Town. Oh man, minus 300 for Brighton. So even if that's really hard to look at.
Yeah, I mean, and this isn't surprising. Brighton,
no, but
coming off, not even just that they're playing Luton Town, but coming off a monster finish to the season last year. They also kind of have something to prove to show that, hey, like, we're not a joke. This is where we belong. This is where we're going to keep going. And this is where I actually like the over 2.5. But again, the odds are just too high. Both to score. I do like the no on this one. I don't think Luton Town's going to score a lot on anyone this year. And I think Brighton's definitely got the talent, and it's just, again, like we talked about last week, like, it's a great story, Luton Town being back at a top flight, the top tier. It's just, they're not a top tier team.
Is it crazy for me to say I actually think I like the under, though? I'm with you on both teams to score no, because I don't think Luton Town will score. But
sure,
could I see them having somewhat of a slightly inspired defensive performance in their return to the Premier League? I mean, this is
it's the Premier League,
just
so
to
it
hold
wouldn't
them to
surprise
2.
me.
I mean,
It wouldn't surprise me, but I honestly do think this is a 3-0 game.
I feel like I would for 1 plus 130. It seems like worth a stab.
Oh,
Like a little,
I agree.
half unit play maybe. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
narrative driven, not a data driven pick. Admittedly, it's
sure.
eh,
Well, and sometimes that's what you got
had
to
to
go
ask.
with, and I don't hate it, and that's why I put it on here because it did intrigue me, especially at the plus 130. But I just don't think they come in inspired. And if you weren't playing in Brighton, yes, but because it's at Brighton,
That's fair.
that's where
That's a
I would lean the
point.
over. But I'm not paying for that either. So give me both teams the no on both teams to score here. This is I think a 3-0 game, but either way, it's not going to be close.
All right, so we'll move on to our fourth match: Everton versus Fulham. Another one that's at least closer.
Yeah, this is another one. When I first looked at it, I was like, "Oh, I like this," but then the more I kind of looked at it, it was not great. Both, I mean, Everton was kind of fighting for their lives last year. Fulham looked good 1 minute, then fell apart, and then looked good, and then would fall apart. And I just don't know which team we're going to see from them. I honestly like the draw more than anything here, and I do like the under 2.5. You get minus 115. Over 2.5 is minus 105. I don't think you're going to get a high scoring game here. You know, they're both, I wouldn't say middle of the pack. They're more of like the upper of the bottom teams.
Right.
So I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of action here. Not a lot of goals scored. So give me the under, and that's all I want. This is just one of those games that's kind of just ugh.
Well, and something we were discussing before the show, sometimes the beginning of season betting is something you're not really trying to be too aggressive with as it is. And when it comes to those mid-tier teams, as you say, that's even more so because, they tend to have more of Jekyll and Hyde type performances, right? I mean, one week they look like they could contend for postseason play, and other times they look like they are due for relegation. So,
well, and it even was one of those things that last year, I think Everton did it a couple times where it was clearly the odds were favoring under. And then you wake up and look at the scores, and it was like a 5-goal match, and it was both sides scoring, not just one versus the other. And it's just like, okay, well, what happened here? And then you kind of shy away from it next week. And then next week it's either a 0-0 draw or just a 1-0 game. And you're just like, okay, what happened? They were scoring goals last week. Now they're not. And they're playing another mediocre team. So it's just Everton, Fulham, West Ham, like those three kind of just, they're just that middle of the road that I think like exactly what you're saying is they'll surprise 1 week and then the next they're not there. So it's just they're kind of one of those teams that I'd rather bet against than bet for. So when two of them are playing each other, it's kind of a game I want to just stay
generally
away from.
and avoid. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so we'll move on to the next matchup here. We have Sheffield United versus Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
What do we like here, if anything?
Well, and this is the other hard part is like you can follow the championship and like see all this stuff, but and like see, Sheffield dominates, Burnley dominates, and then now that you're seeing them, or you don't even get to see them yet in the Premier League, and it's just hard to be like, are they going to perform well? Are they going to be just mediocre, whatever. And if they were playing like Burnley, how they're going against Man City, like I know Man City is definitely the better team. Where like here, it's kind of like, okay, Sheffield United and Crystal Palace should be on the same level. And I mean, they're both plus money. It's at Sheffield. I mean, Crystal Palace is your favorite, but I mean, the odds are under 2.5 or minus 150. Both to score, which kind of made me laugh that both the score were 120 for yes and minus 105 for no. So I mean, to me, that's saying you're going to get a 1-1 draw, and I don't like any of these odds. They're all too high. It's just kind of like these are the teams that I'll put on a list of like I want to see them before I put any money on them, unless they're going against like a giant in the league, like a top 6. Then I'm going to be like, okay, cool. I mean, the odds will still be probably poor in some regard, but at least I know I can get probably a no on both to score, something like that. Whereas like this one, I don't really want. I want to watch it before it happens.
Understandable. So now we're back to getting a match here with a clear favorite, and that would be Newcastle hosting Aston Villa.
See, and these odds actually surprised me. I figured Newcastle's odds would be not as much in their favor. I thought this would be closer to plus money for them. I know they're the better team, and I mean they just had a fun match together. What, last week, 3-3, and I know it's not your full starting set playing for the full 90. So it's like Aston Villa plus 350. That just seemed too high. I think that should be lower. I do think Newcastle wins this, but definitely I like the over 2.5. I really like that. And both to score, give me that one. But at minus 140, I probably won't touch it. But I like minus 130.
That might be a case where you might want to take those together.
Yes. And I mean, it'll go up a little bit, but I do like the odds together. But if I'm picking one, I'll take the Newcastle at 130, and I'll take the over at 2.5 at 130. But yeah, if you can definitely parlay those together, I'd take that too. But I definitely think there's going to be a lot of goals scored here. This is probably and then the Chelsea Liverpool are probably my favorite games of the weekend.
Certainly for entertainment value.
Oh, absolutely. And I think they're just giving Newcastle the home field, which I 100% agree with. But I kind of thought these would be a little tighter odds. But I could see Aston Villa squeaking this out, but just give me the favorite here.
I mean, minus 130 is not prohibitive, but I don't know. It seems like with Aston Villa having longer odds, I don't know, that at least than you were expecting, could be a little bit of value there, worth a little sprinkle.
Yeah, yep,
quarter absolutely. Unit, something like that.
Yep, I like that.
All right, and now we'll move forward to Brentford versus the Harry Kane-less Tottenham.
Yes. Well, and this one,
I assume probably taken off the board at these numbers that we have.
Yes, I think when I was looking for
then I'm gonna
the other ones, this one's kind of disappeared as well. But from last year, I don't really trust Tottenham. And, you just took away arguably their best player. And now that would make me want even more not to do with them. So it's one of those ones that I think this becomes interesting. And I kind of look forward to this one just to see how they respond without Kane and what their formation looks like without him. And, I wonder if they kind of go into this where it's just like a weight's lifted off their shoulders, because this rumor has been dragged out since, the end of the season, and you're literally dragging it up until the very, final weekend. And I mean, he
It
went
could
and
be
played with
liberating
them.
in a sense then, yeah.
Right. I mean, he was even with the team during their preseason, which I actually expected him to step away, but I give him credit for sticking it out, not knowing, 100% like I'm gone or I'm staying.
Right.
And, it's just kind of one of those things that, yeah, I think that it's now, okay, we know what we got. Let's just go with it and see where we go. And, they're not a Champions League team. So I kind of think it's a all or nothing season for them. So I still would like if I had to pick a team, it would be Tottenham here. Um, Especially because Ivan Toney is gone for Brentford. That if he was around, not on his suspension, I would 100% take Brentford here. But with him out, I think I'd give it to Tottenham, but I refuse to put any money down on Tottenham until they can prove to me that they're not going to shit the bed.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to touch anything Tottenham related for a few weeks just to see how
Yep.
the team's going to look without Kane, who's been there a long time too. So I'm a big part of their identity, right? So
Yep.
it's not just it's beyond just losing, one of your best players, if not your best player. It's your I don't know if he was still necessarily the soul of the team, like in the on-field sense, like you said, but
No.
he but locker room wise, I mean, I doubt his voice ever lost any weight at any point, right?
Right.
Highly respected in the entire
Right.
organization from especially the younger players who grew up watching him. So
Yep.
it's that's the effect that I'm wondering
Right.
how extreme it's going to be. So yeah, it just really like I
Well,
said, this is a case where I definitely want to see it before I bet for or
sure. Oh,
against them because
and
maybe
I'd
they're
be
strong.
more true, and I'd be more on board with him leaving and trusting what's being left behind if the supporting pieces from last season actually played well last season. And that's the problem. Is I mean, Son wasn't great. He wasn't terrible either, but it was, I think, a disappointment. Um, oh, Richarlison, that was a joke, and I think I think that's the key right there is if he can step up, and then you've got your supporting cast from there, be able to pick up and carry on without your leader. I think they'll be okay. But the problem is too is they didn't make any huge splashes like the other top tier teams did. So, and I don't blame. It's not. I mean, it's because you don't have the Champions League aspirations, so it's harder to
Right,
draw
you're not a
people in.
destination. Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of like they're now in a. It's time to plan for the future. So I think that makes it a little scarier too. So definitely, you got to prove something before we can see what we like going forward. But I I'm excited to see it just to see who steps up and what happens, or if it just fully falls apart here.
It'll be fascinating to see. All right. So, what is actually probably the true match of the week, as much as
Hundred
I
percent.
like to, pump my Gunners, is Chelsea hosting Liverpool. I mean, this is, big boys.
Yep. Yep. And and it's funny because like all the talk of Chelsea, 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 like they're gonna have a top 5, 6 finish, whatever. Like to see them kind of even mentioned in the top 4 kind of makes me laugh, but like and I know Liverpool had a down season, but they're also coming off season prior to just missing out on the title by a point. And I almost feel like it's kind of, not that they were forgotten, but I do feel like they're kind of written off in a sense where it's like, okay, like Chelsea's blowing it up and doing these like great things, and like, it's their time to shine, which is the same crap we heard last year. So I don't understand the true love for it all, because this was all what was said last year, and they, you know, were at the bottom of the pack in the top, and now Liverpool goes out and signs huge names, cleans up their midfield, and probably have one of the best midfields now, and still have all their great attacking options. And it's like they're not even like it's Arsenal or Man City is what I feel like everybody's talking about. So it's like, and of course, like I'm a Liverpool fan, but it's kind of one of those things where it's just like they're being left out of a lot of the conversations I'm seeing, and I'm hoping they come into this game and prove why they should be in the conversation of why can't we win this league. And I
Well,
think
they're
if
third
it's
shortest in odds. I mean, they're right behind
true,
City and
but
Arsenal, right? So I mean, there is
right, sure,
still some.
odds wise,
I mean,
people understand,
yeah,
but
maybe some pundits or some people on the internet
yes,
aren't showing some proper respect, but people that are putting their
right.
money where their mouth is are certainly showing the respect.
Well, and I get it. It should be Arsenal and Man City because of how well they performed last year. But you bolstered up your problems. Your back line still might be a little questionable, but I think they're still strong enough to where they can figure it out. And I I think what Chelsea has done is great, and this is more on the line of what they should have done last year. And I do think they have a better shot. Top six, I still don't believe it, but it's one of those things where it's like if it happens, it kind of wouldn't shock me either because that's where they should be as a club who's in the top six grouping. So like that's where they should be, and this one I think it's going to be one of the best matches. And it's funny because the last three were all 0-0 draws, which coming off last season, that says more about Liverpool not being able to put anything away rather than Chelsea not being able to win. But I think the over 2.5 here is a slam dunk. This is not going to end in a 0-0 draw, and if it does, then that's a disaster for both teams, honestly. Um,
Yeah, it
but
seems surprising that it would be such a heavy favorite on the over, given that the last three matches were scoreless draws.
right, but well, that just tells you the talent and firepower that both teams have brought in, and it's I know it's Chelsea. They get the home match, and I mean that's a huge thing. But to me, Liverpool went in and they got the draw against Arsenal last year, and that was probably one of the, besides Man City, obviously, like that's such a tough place to go in and play, and to go down and come back and get the draw. That's huge. Here, I still think they go in thinking they're the better team. They've got the better offense. They've got the better set. That they're not going to even have to worry about going down. It's just let's get that first goal. Let's hold, try and push so we can get the second and like put this thing to bed. And with watching both preseason sets of both Chelsea and Liverpool, like Chelsea, I do admit like they looked impressive. Um, I mean, still for all the talent they brought in, I kind of wanted to see a little bit more. Um, and then Liverpool, like for them to basically just have this rebuilt midfield have to come together too. You know, both teams struggled a little bit, which is expected. And it should be because, these guys have never played together. They're
Yeah, they
all
got a Joe.
trying to figure it out. But I think the talent coming into Liverpool, especially with the Caicedo pickup being huge, um, Like, it's just Liverpool for me.
So is that who you're taking this weekend?
Yeah, give me the plus 135. I love that. Over 2.5, just at minus 155. I'm not taking that. I didn't even put the both to score here because those odds were just ridiculous. Nobody's getting shut out in this game.
I think you're correct. All right, so now we'll move on to the final matchup this week, and that is Manchester United versus Wolverhampton. Heavy favorite on the United side, obviously, so I don't know if there's really much here to think about.
Well, and actually,
I'm missing one of the bets here.
I wanted to bring up because I think no, the odds I'm surprised didn't change. They did. They shifted a little bit to so Man U is now minus 330 and Wolves are plus 800. And I think this has to do with the Wolves coach quitting days before your first match. So
that's a hell of a way to go into a year,
right? Oh, I couldn't believe when I saw that it was just nope, I'm out, I'm done. And it's kind of like, are you serious? Like we got a game in a couple of days. Oh, yep, I'm done. Sorry, guys.
Andrew Luck went into coaching.
Yeah. And
wow, that's wild. That's really wild. I did not see that news. So.
Well, and this is where I'm actually surprised that with the odds shifting,
you would think it would shift even more.
I thought
you
so.
Would think United would be 500 like Arsenal is prohibitive.
Yeah, and I know the Wolves kind of have played Man U somewhat solid. Not like it's out of this realm that they could beat them, but yeah, you're bringing someone else in that it's what's going on. The players know what's going on, but there's still that you still have to gel with each other to still have a game plan that they understand, that you understand, that everybody knows, okay, this is what we're going to do. But the fact that the odds didn't shift for the both to score no kind of surprised me. Like that's still sitting at minus 125, which I like that for sure.
Yeah.
Especially because you're at Old Trafford. Like I'll take this all day. Wolves is kind of a surprising team, but I just don't see them being a force here. And Man U's definitely picked up some solid pieces. You've got probably one of the better goalkeepers now. I don't think you're getting past him. So I like Man U here and both to score as no. But this is another one where Man U, I'm going to couple this with a parlay and just roll the dice there. And I feel like that's just easy money. Take me on that one, and they're good.
Well, speaking of that parlay, let's tie off this episode for week 1 with this particular bet.
Yep. So I went with Arsenal, Man U, and Brighton plus 111. I'm surprised I even got that number, but and that'll obviously change a little bit with the minus 330.
It'll
but
probably be closer to just straight even, I would imagine.
Yeah, but I'll still take that. I mean, these should be.
These should be slam
go
dunks.
in, do your business, and get out. We won. It's no question. There should be no sweat here. Like this is by halftime. All these games should be locked up, and you should not have to worry about it, and just wait for the money to drop back in. So, and this is kind of what I steer to for the first couple of weeks of the season is go a little bit with parlays here on the heavier favorites just to get your money's worth. because a lot of these matchups, it's like you said, you're still trying to figure everything out. It's still trying to see who does what, how they're going to play. And, there's still some teams dealing with injuries. So it's kind of, I want to, it's funny that the parlay is the safer play, but like that's what I want right now. Is give me the solid probably top 4 teams. If you're going against the bottom half of the league, I'll take that probably 9 times out of 10 that hits. So I'll take that money all day.
I mean, yeah, you don't want to get too nuts with it. I don't think you or I would generally advise regularly just throwing all the minus 300s and above in a parlay.
No.
That's not going to be a profitable strategy by any stretch of the imagination. Just to try and scrape your way back to an even money bet. I mean, upsets happen. So, but on a weekend like this, it does make sense. I mean, there are true.
Right.
I mean,
give me
inequitable
the top
matchups
teams.
here.
Yeah. And that's what I want. I want the top teams going against teams that have no business winning these games. That, on a normal day, if I just, if you're just doing like survivors or anything like that, and you're saying, okay, I'm taking Man U against Wolves here, like that's the lock that I want. And I'm only going to take these knowing that that's how I feel about each one, not just because, like you said, I'm not looking at like how ridiculous their odds are.
Right.
But I
just want to make sure
that
that's clearly communicated.
Yes, absolutely. No, that's a good point. Give me the sure thing. And, and 3 is where I draw the line. Like, unless you're doing like some crazy ones, but
yeah, if you're doing a lotto ticket, that's a whole different story. But then also don't just do all the favorites though.
No, no, because that generally will not work out for you. Because I guarantee you'll drop 8 in there and 7 win and 1 loses. Yeah. And
always the last one. Always.
It is. And it's the one that shouldn't have lost. Yes.
Right.
And it's the one that probably had like the best odds. Yeah. But no, generally I stick to 3. I like to stick to just 2, so I'm not having to rely on, any further teams that,
right.
Okay, I have to make sure that they're getting this win. It's like, give me that lock. But, I can't take any of them at 2 because then the odds just, it's still unfavorable. So sometimes you do have to drop that 3rd team in there.
You got to reduce the juice somehow.
Right. Well, unless there's some like ridiculous set of matchups that you can get a 4th in there, I might do it, but generally I try not to. Just because then you're looking at that number and it's just like, oh, it's too good to be true, and it usually is.
Makes sense.
That's also where I might couple it with maybe a like you were saying, you take a both to score and one of the teams to win. Like I'd rather do that and have it rely all on one match instead of trying to pick up.
That's one thing I was gonna say. If you have a particular total or both teams to score yes or no prop that you can work in there, that's not a bad idea either.
Yeah, and from what I looked
generally
at,
you're not going to see those get into the minus 200s and above. So
no, but even the ones that I really liked, the odds still weren't fantastic. So it was kind of like all those you kind of got to steer away from. So I think Man City, I was looking at theirs for Man City to win and it to be both teams to score. Yes. But the odds were still just too ridiculous because I think everybody kind of still has that same feeling as not, I wouldn't say it's easy to score on Man City, but it's one of those things that they're going to get ahead and they get lazy a little bit.
They're vulnerable to that late goal.
Yeah. So they usually drop one in. But again, it's kind of one of those things that I don't take it as much just because it's like, it almost seems like the Community Shield. If you're the runner up, it's your game anyways. Like if you just go back a couple, like it's the runner up always seems to win. So I feel like it's a last get right game before you go into the season. I don't take it as much just because it's still a preseason game in my mind.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
So even even then, you're kind of like waiting to see what Man City is going to do, and for them not to be at like their full power, they still look great. So did Arsenal, but like it's one of those things that I don't want to try and carry that into them going against Burnley either, because I don't fully know what's going on. But the odds there are just, I mean, they're giving Burnley no credit, like to even keep this relatively close. So, and it should be a Man City game, but it's kind of one of those things that some of the odds towards Burnley's favor I would take. But
maybe. Also,
I want to see
it's
them
just
first.
that obvious.
Yeah, I want to see them first because I think they're going to surprise, but I mean, obviously not win, but I think they're going to be more of a force than I think they're expected to be.
Hopefully, they can hold their own.
Right. And I look forward to that. So that'll be a fun one to watch tomorrow.
It'll just be good to have official league play back again.
Yep.
And for more of these bets, make sure you do check out our Instagram at Premier Betting Show. And you can also jump into our free Discord, which will be in the link below.
Yep.
And there we do a variety of sports. We cover everything. It is not just English Premier League. Well, I guess not everything, but we've got football, we've got basketball, we've got
the important stuff.
Yeah. And we've got baseball, we've got golf and tennis on occasion. Generally just the bigger tournaments, but it's in there. And we like to be well-rounded, cultured, diverse. But for all your EPL needs, again, please stick with the Premier Betting Show, both here on YouTube and on Instagram, because, during the week, sometimes you may get some stuff that is going to be here on the show. So it pays to follow on different media.
Yes. One, especially for like the game tomorrow. Don't want to talk about that one too much here, just because if you're listening later on Friday, then it's too late, where we'll put other content out so that you're not missing on our thoughts on the game tomorrow. And I mean, throughout the season, that'll happen with Champions Leagues matchups and stuff like that. We're unfortunately have to skip those on the show for some of them, but the content will always be there.
Indeed. Both there. And again, of course, the Discord. We'll have that there as well. So with that, we will see you again next week to discuss next week's matchups. Also, don't forget to follow me, Fantasy Boardroom, here on YouTube. The season just kicked off last night. My show tends to be live Wednesday evenings. You'll see me around 6 or 7 p.m. Pacific time. It varies because life is life, but it's generally going to be within that hour. So yeah, make sure you're following me over there for all of your fantasy football needs, American football. And again, gosh, man, I got to make sure I'm getting terms right here as we're talking about football.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
American fantasy football, National Football League fantasy football is discussed over there. But again, thank you all for listening. This has been the Premier Betting Show, Episode 2, Week 1. Goodbye.
See you next week.